bottle trees of Namibia. Check out this curvy beauty. The bottle trees of Namibia are a species of plant whose name is derived from the 19th century Portuguese geologist Fernando de Costa Leal, who described the bottle tree during an exploration in southern Angola by the thick bottle-shaped trunk, which is almost branchless until the top. The branches are few and covered by slender thorns, and the leaves are covered with short hairs on both surfaces. But it does help the bottle tree actually maintain its hydration. The poison is so effective that hunters in the region used to smear the sap on their arrows just to add that extra sting. And yet no one calls it a poison dart tree. Go figure. The sandbox tree. The sandbox tree, also known as jabillo, is an evergreen tree native to tropical regions of North and South America, including the Amazon rainforest. It's also present in parts of Tanzania, where it's considered an invasive species. It can be recognized by its smooth brown bark covered in many dark pointed spines, which have led to its being nicknamed monkey no-climb. The fruit of the sandbox tree is poisonous, causing vomiting, diarrhea, and cramps if ingested. The tree sap is said to cause an angry red rash, and it can blind you if it gets in your eyes. Leaves are said to treat eczema. When properly prepared, extracts are said to treat rheumatism and intestinal worms. Good to know. The tree gets its name from little bowls made from the fruits that were once used to hold fine, dry sand. The sand was used for blotting ink before the time of blotting paper. Other names include monkey's dinner bell, monkey's pistol, and possumwood. And when planted in isolated areas, it's likely to spread. Better safe than sorry. Traveler's Tree of Madagascar. The traveler's tree, also called traveler's palm, so named because the water it accumulates in its leaf bases had been used in emergencies for thirsty travelers. The fan of leaves also tends to grow roughly on an east-west line, providing a crude compass for travelers. This, the only Ravenella species, is native in Madagascar and cultivated around the world. The trunk resembles that of a palm tree and attains a height of more than 26 feet. At the top of the tree, there are large banana-like leaves with long, pale leaf stalks that are arranged in a single plane to give a fan-like appearance. The leaves are 13 to 16 feet long, and each leaf base, shaped like a huge cup, can hold about a quart of rainwater. The large flower clusters contain unusual white blossoms, similar in appearance to the bird of paradise flower. Madagascar native lemurs seem to be the primary pollinators of this species of tree. The famous angel oak tree. Southern live oaks are native to the lowland country of the coastal Carolinas in the United States and home to the famous angel oak tree. Its branches reach in all directions, with some driving underground and then growing back above the surface. Its name comes from the Angel Estate, owned by couple Justice Angel and Martha Waite Angel. However, local legends say that the ghosts appear as angels around the tree. The tree is now property of the city of Charleston. Recently, a plan for apartment development near the Angel Oak has been scrutinized and fought against by the SC Coastal Conservation League. They argue that the development would alter the underwater flow of the tree and clear the nearby forests whose root systems are intimately related with the Angel Oak. The fairy tale-esque tree is thought to be one of the oldest living oak trees east of the Mississippi River. Estimated to be around 400 to 500 years old, this southern live oak has survived a number of hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes. It was damaged by Hurricane Hugo in 1989, but recovered and continues to grow. It's probably good luck. The Wawona tree. Nothing like an honest day of hard work, right? Well, in 1881, two men, the Scribner brothers, were paid $75, equal to $1,750 in 2020, for the job of cutting a tunnel through the Wawona tree in Yosemite National Park in California. The tree had a slight lean to it, which increased when the tunnel was finished. It became a hugely popular tourist attraction, and many tourists and families were photographed going through it or standing in it. Smile for the camera. Construction of the tunnel through the Wawona tree was part of an effort by the Park Service to help increase tourism in the age of the automobile. Nothing like quality time with your family in the car. Around this same time frame, the phrase scenic drive was introduced into the national vocabulary and a part of many familiar regular routines. But under a heavy load of snow on its crown, the Wawona tree collapsed in 1969. The giant sequoia was estimated to have been 2,300 years old. When the giant tree fell, there was major debate about what to do with it. They ended up leaving it where it went down merely for ecological reasons, but it still serves as a popular tourist attraction, and it's now known as the Fallen Tree Tunnel. Pando, the trembling giant. If you've ever walked through an aspen grove and seen hundreds of thousands of white trunks propping up a sky of silvery green leaves trembling in the wind, you may have walked right through Pando. The largest aspen grove in the world in Utah is named Pando, Latin for I spread out. In total, the grove of aspens covers 106 acres. It sprouted 80,000 years ago from a seed the size of a pepper grain and now supports almost 50,000 trunks, making it the heaviest living thing in the world and one of the oldest. Aspens have the unique ability to produce genetically identical offspring through offshoots from their root system. In the fall, all the leaves in one grove will go from green to gold at the same time. This is because the entire grove is really just one massive root system from which many trunks have sprouted out, grown, died, and then are replaced by new trunks. The grove of 47,000 trees has remained for thousands of years, partially because the single organism has been able to supply trees at every stage of aspen's life, helping it to be resistant to external threats. 'Cause that's how Pando rolls, and I respect it. Banyan tree. A banyan tree is a fig tree that begins its life as an epiphyte, a plant that grows on another plant when its seed germinates in a crack or crevice of a host tree. Cool trick, right? The banyan is one of more than 750 species of fig trees, each of which is also pollinated by its own species of tiny wasps that breed only inside the figs of their partner trees. Also very cool, banyans are the world's biggest trees in terms of the area they cover. The biggest one alive today is in the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. It covers 4.7 acres and can shelter 20,000 people. That's insane. Banyans are ecological linchpins. They produce vast crops of figs that sustain many species of birds, fruit bats, primates, and other creatures, which in turn disperse the seeds of hundreds of other plant species. Vines of Wisteria. Remember Wisteria Lane, the scandalous suburban setting in the Desperate Housewives TV hit? The plant can be dangerous, like the women in that series. Wisteria is a long-lived vining plant with cascades of blue to purple flowers that look spectacular hanging from a pergola or archway in spring and early summer. However, this vine is a fast and aggressive grower, often reaching 30+ feet, and is known to grow quite heavy. Wisteria vines will work their way into any crook or cranny they can reach, so it's advised not to plant them too near to your home. Wisteria flowers are also beautifully fragrant, providing a feast for the senses. After flowering, a brown bean-like pod stays on the plant until winter. Blooms only appear on new growth. But remember, plant wisteria with caution. All parts of the wisteria plant contain substances called lectin and wisterin, which are toxic to pets, livestock, and humans. These toxins can cause anything from nausea and diarrhea to death if consumed in large amounts. Wisteria is native to China, Korea, Japan, and the eastern United States, and in Hollywood. The Tree of Life. One tree in Bahrain has found a way to thrive in the desert. The Sarajat al-Hayat, or Tree of Life, has stood alone in an extra harsh climate for over 400 years in a remote desert location. Lacking any visible source of water, the 32-foot mesquite tree has baffled visitors and scientists alike for its entire life as it's continued to grow. Maybe it's some sort of miracle. Although the mesquite tree is known for holding a great deal of water in its massive root system, there is still no source of water in sight. Even arid vegetation needs water to survive, which makes Bahrain's Tree of Life even more mysterious. Without a rational explanation for the tree's biological success, many have turned to mythology and religion for answers. Some assert that Enki, an ancient god of water in Babylonian and Sumerian mythology, protects the tree. Others still believe the site is the historical location of the Garden of Eden. Whatever the answer, the tree has shown no sign of dying and continues to inspire as it stands proudly in the tiny desert nation. In 2010, archaeologists unearthed 500-year-old pottery and other artifacts in the vicinity of the tree. Trees with burrows. Alright, for our first entry into this creative catalog of plant life, let's turn our attention toward an everyday occurrence that's rooted in a marvelous kind of mystery. Take a look at this image, recently discovered by our team here at Missing Files, or a seemingly mutated kind of tree, complete with bulbous growth on its trunk. The image itself, which was captured by a dog walker up in upstate Buffalo, New York, appears to show an incredibly large burrow growing in the center of a bur oak. And while you've probably seen similar occurrences out in the wild, contrary to popular belief, this large knobby growth isn't actually harmful to the tree. In fact, most burrows of this size are prized by woodworkers for their beautiful and intricate patterns, and a specimen of this colossal size would likely attract some pretty big interest for those with a keen enough eye. While it may look like a mutated growth of sorts, tree burrows are actually pretty darn awesome. The burrow itself is a strange-looking collection of tree cells, more commonly known as callus tissue, which is formed by a tree in response to an environmental injury, such as pruning, wildlife, disease, or even insect damage.
This is a genetically modified organism, or at least this bit of it is.
In fact, just like how our bodies develop calloused skin after blisters and wounds, many trees do exactly the same. The most common burrow trees are cherry, oak, ash, maple, elm, and walnut. While they may seem ugly at first glance, they're actually pretty incredible. Bulb prison tree. In the world of trees, few species are as significant as the bulb, an ancient gnarled specimen that's been found in the outback of Australia for hundreds of thousands of years. While the vast majority of these incredible trees live for hundreds, if not thousands of years, one of them in particular has drawn a considerable amount of controversy and criticism over the past decade or two. The so-called bulb prison tree, which is a 1,500-year-old bulb tree just a few miles south of Derby in Western Australia, is one of the continent's most impressive specimens and has a girth of around 50 feet and a large hollow tree trunk. According to local legend, often repeated during the colonization of Australia from European settlers, the tree was so large that it allegedly served as a temporary jail for indigenous Australian prisoners on their way to the city of Derby. However, recent investigations have concluded that it's almost certainly a myth, one that was used to cover up the real Aboriginal significance of this incredible bulb specimen. The truth of the matter is, bulb trees are often incredibly sacred to the Aboriginal people of Australia and are considered to be individual entities with their own personalities. The tree at Derby was considered to be immensely important and was used by indigenous people as an ossuary, or a place to store and bury the bones of their ancestors. Rubber tree. As one of the most significant and sought-after resources of the industrial era, rubber trees have endured a rich history of being one of the planet's most invaluable natural resources, and have often been the target of tycoons and greedy capitalists that have attempted to exploit this astonishing specimen. As you may have guessed, rubber trees produce rubber, and despite its more modern usage in vehicles, textiles, and medicine, incredibly, its relationship with human culture dates back thousands of years. As a fast-growing species of broadleaf evergreen tree, the rubber tree is native to the rainforest of South America, as well as the further-flung tropical rainforest of Sumatra, the Himalayas, India, Nepal, and Java. Also known as the rubber fig tree, the plant itself produces a milky-colored latex sap which can be retrieved from the plant once it matures to around 6 years old. Astonishingly, the rubber tree can grow to over 100 feet tall in the wild, and they have powerful roots that spread across long distances. Often known to uproot human settlements that have been built too close, it's believed that the early Aztecs used the rubber tree's sap to waterproof their clothing and would have also used it to make their own protective footwear. Incredibly, the usage of rubber in early Mesoamerican culture is believed to have dated back to the Olmecs, a civilization which existed in South America as early as 2500 BC. Silk cotton tree. Speaking of local legends, let's take a look at the awe-inspiring silk cotton tree, also known as the ceiba tree, one of the largest trees in the American tropics, and one that's played an immensely important role in the spiritual and cultural lives of the Caribbean people. While most gigantic trees take hundreds of years to reach maturity, the silk cotton tree is a rapidly growing deciduous tree that easily reaches heights of 80 feet or more in a remarkably short space of time. Famed for their ability to provide much-needed shape in the dense jungles of its native habitat, this tree is culturally revered by many indigenous Caribbean societies. But most importantly, the Taino people of Puerto Rico believe them to be a shelter for the spirits of the dead, forest inhabitants known as opias, which would oversee the world of the dead and feed off the fruits left behind by the tree. In other cultures, it's known as the devil tree or the Jumbi tree and is regarded by some as having a soul or a resident spirit that inhabits its roots and branches. Tane Mahuta. While we've touched on the spiritual and cultural significance that many of these trees possess, few individual specimens can compare to the legendary status given to New Zealand's largest specimen. Towering nearly 170 feet in the sky with a tree trunk over 40 feet in size, the Tane Mahuta is New Zealand's largest known living kauri tree, and its name in Maori literally means the Lord of the Forest. First identified by modern surveyors back in the 1920s, the Tane Mahuta is believed to be anywhere between 1250 and 2500 years old and is believed to be a remnant of the ancient subtropical rainforest that once covered a large section of the North Auckland Peninsula. According to their mythology, Tane is the son of the Sky Father and the Earth Mother, and he plays an incredibly important role as the god of the forest and the birds. It's fitting then that Tane Mahuta is named in his honor and has easily become the most famous tree in all of New Zealand. The General Sherman tree. Okay, while we've had some pretty strong contenders for the title, we have to give credit to one of the most astonishing life forms on the planet. General Sherman, the biggest tree on planet Earth, is not only the biggest giant sequoia specimen, which is the tallest species of tree on Earth. As far as we know, he's also the official largest living thing in the history of the planet, ever, measuring in at an eye-watering 274.9 feet tall, with his widest girth at a staggering 79 feet. The General Sherman tree is truly one of the most awe-inspiring trees we've ever seen. For a long time, it was thought that General Sherman was around 2,000 to 3,000 years old, but recent research has even suggested that he could be upwards of 6,000 years old. The thing is, while the generally agreed age is around 2,700 years old, it's pretty darn difficult to tell because the tree itself consists mainly of dead wood and no one exactly knows how many rings to count to determine its true age. We'll just settle with it's really, really old. The walking tree. Whether it's Lord of the Rings or Shakespeare's Macbeth, the notion of a walking tree has long since fascinated fantasy writers and dramatists alike. However, it seems that the truth may be far stranger than fiction because this next specimen of a tree actually walks. Well, technically speaking, anyway. This rare species of palm tree can grow new roots to sidestep its way to better soil, and although that sounds like a gradual process, this thing is actually pretty darn rapid. Despite the fact that it's very much a tree, which, are usually stationary, this mobile specimen can actually travel around 65 feet per year. What the heck? Native to Ecuador, these trees were once considered to be an urban legend by biologists, and although it probably takes some liberties to redefine the meaning of walking, the truth is, this walking tree uses new root growth to shift itself around the forest floor. That's a fact. Although the tree's original roots stay firmly put, this incredible species makes astonishing use of its movement to find life where others can't. And that's pretty incredible. Wax palms. While palm trees are often seen as a symbol of cocktails, sunbathing, and beachside shenanigans, they're actually some of the most incredible and ancient species of tree on Earth. In particular, the wax palms of Cocora Valley in Colombia are amongst the most fascinating, and they've earned themselves the top spot as the world's tallest type of palm tree. Towering upwards of 200 feet tall, these slim and imposing tree-lined structures are found in dense clusters throughout Colombia's Cocora Valley, but unfortunately they nearly became extinct just several decades ago. In the past, Catholic people would over-harvest these incredible trees for use during the Holy Palm Sunday, and it led to a plummet in their natural occurring numbers. In an attempt to save the trees, the wax palm was declared the official tree of Colombia and is now legally protected by the Colombian government. Halfman's tree. Let's take a look at the Halfman's tree, one of the strangest and most intriguing stemmed succulent on the planet. Known to always lean northward, the Halfman's tree is technically a tree-like plant known as a succulent, and instead is completely devoid of branches, resembling more of a cactus than anything else. With its spiny trunk and mop of leaves at its peak, these remarkable plants grown upward of 7 feet and are found all across the parched desert regions of South Africa and Namibia. They are often harvested for their collected stored waters found in their swollen stems. Its name, which comes from Afrikaans, suggests that the plant has an uncanny resemblance to the silhouette of a human figure when viewed from a distance. Sunland Baobab Tree. If you're a super tree hugger, the Sunland Baobab in Limpopo, South Africa, is a one-stop shop for finishing off your tree-hugging bucket list. It's one of the largest baobabs in South Africa, and at a whopping 72 feet high and 155 feet around, the widest on the entire continent. Besides its remarkable dimensions, the baobab is also one of the oldest trees on Earth. According to some estimates, Sunland Baobab is 6,000 years old. While there is some controversy regarding the age, carbon dating has placed the tree easily past the millennium mark, putting Sunland Baobab among the ranks of California's legendary sequoias. To add to the wonder of the species, baobabs naturally hollow out after 1,000 years. The Sunland Baobab was hollowed to such a point that the owners of the land, the Van Heerden family, created a small pub inside the space, with 13-foot-high ceilings and can comfortably fit 15 people. Unfortunately, the giant tree trunk split and a third of it collapsed in April of 2016, likely due to its age. The bar is still open though it is run down and in a bit of a rough shape. Avenue of the Baobabs. This famous dirt road on the west coast of Madagascar is framed by dozens of rare and ancient baobab trees, so beautiful and unique that it became the country's first official natural monument, and rightfully so. These giant, dry-season deciduous trees, many of which are more than 800 years old with trunks that are over 150 feet around, and at one time were part of a rich forest of the trees and other plants, but the encroachment of modern civilization and increasing populations in the area led to massive deforestation, leaving the remaining baobabs to stand in relative isolation. Still, baobabs are incredibly useful plants. Oldest and largest type of tree, it's said that these incredible trees can often live between 1,100 and 2,500 years, and in many American societies, they've played an integral role in survival. It's said that the baobab tree has more than 300 different uses, including shelter, religious ceremonies, medicinal purposes, and to provide food, fiber, juice, and even beer. Although they're certainly Africa's most iconic species of tree, there are actually 9 different species of the baobab, 6 from Madagascar, 2 from Africa, and 1 from Australia. These incredible trees store large volumes of water in their wide trunks, which provides an incredibly important food source to elephants and animals that chew the bark during the dry seasons. If there was ever a multi-purpose tool of a tree, it's definitely the baobab. So cheers, baobab trees! Thankfully, private organizations are now promoting efforts to have the avenue protected so that the trees might survive for another 800 years to come. Dragon's Blood Tree. A tree that bleeds? Yeah, we got you. In Arabic, it's known as the blood of the two brothers. The dragon's blood tree, with its crimson resin and dense crown of prehistoric leaves found exclusively on the island of Socotra in Yemen, this truly remarkable species lives within the remnants of a prehistoric environment after the island of Socotra was separated from mainland Arabia over 34 million years ago. You see, because of its severance from the mainland, nearly half of its plant species are found nowhere else on Earth. Of the 825 plant species found on Socotra today, 37% are endemic, meaning they live nowhere else. The islands play host to as many as 11 unique bird species, and over 90% of reptiles and mollusks are endemic too. So the dragon's blood tree only adds to the island's unique qualities. Offshore, multiple biogeographical areas converge around Socotra, creating an equally fertile marine environment. As an incredibly important economic resource to the people of Yemen, this remarkable tree takes its name from the red resin found beneath its bark, which was culturally traded by the ancient people of Yemen as cinnabar or dragon's blood, a distinctive red dye found nowhere else on Earth. No wonder that in eras gone by, Greek and Arab sailors connected this peculiar and plentiful land with paradise. Some even regarded the land as part of the lost mythical continent of Atlantis. The dragon's blood tree looks right at home here, once at the heart of ancient silk and spice trading routes between the Arab world, Africa, and Asia. The island lies in the middle of one of the world's most important oil trading channels. Rainbow eucalyptus. Everyone loves a rainbow. So can you imagine we'd all love a rainbow tree, and people fall in love with rainbow eucalyptus at the first time that they see it? It's gorgeous. Intense color and fragrance make the tree unforgettable, but it's not for everyone, although we can't really imagine why. Here are a few things you should know about these outstanding beauties. Rainbow eucalyptus is the only eucalyptus tree indigenous to the northern hemisphere, so it's super rare. It grows in the Philippines, New Guinea, and Indonesia, where it thrives in tropical forests that get a lot of rain. The tree grows up to 200 feet tall in its native environment. In the United States, rainbow eucalyptus grows in the frost-free climates found in Hawaii and the southern portions of California, Texas, and Florida. In the continental USA, the tree only grows to heights of 100 to 125 feet, considered by many to be the most beautiful tree on Earth. The rainbow eucalyptus has become somewhat of a fan favorite for its incredibly distinctive appearance, where its multicolored bark has given it a beautifully unique characteristic. Astonishingly, as the bark of this tree flakes away, it leaves behind an incredible series of brightly colored streaks, often said to resemble the strokes of an artist's brush. Despite being recognized by its beautiful rainbow-hued trunk, this astonishing specimen is also recorded as one of the fastest-growing trees in the world, and its practical uses have been introduced across the planet in order to combat climate change and other issues. In the swampy areas of Africa, for example, this tree was planted so that it would soak up excess water, preventing the breeding of mosquitoes and stifling the spread of malaria. Wollemi pine tree. Once you accept that a common genetically identical stock can define a tree, then the absolute winner for oldest tree, or the oldest clonal material belonging to a tree, must go to the Wollemi pine. It may be more than 60 million years old. Here's where it will blow your mind. The Wollemi pine clones itself, forming exact genetic copies. It was thought to be extinct until a tiny remnant population was discovered in Australia's Wollemi National Park in 1994. Feast your eyes on the Wollemi pine, an incredibly diverse species that once covered the whole of Australia, but has sadly known dwindled to just a handful of species. While they may not sound significant, fossil evidence indicates that between 200 million and 100 million years ago, this tree was found across all of Australia. We're talking the entire continent. And given the fact that the center of Australia is now a dry and vastly inhospitable environment, this incredible dinosaur tree may shed light on the conditions that turned Australia from a luscious, thick forest to a barren, baked wasteland. Believed to be an indication of the devastating wildfire that occurs across the Australian bush, it's thought that a drier, more flammable continent is likely to have driven this extraordinary tree to near extinction over thousands and thousands of years. Incredibly, while they were thought to have fully died out, a handful of the surviving specimens were found in 2006 in a secluded gully near Sydney. A recovery plan has been drawn up outlining strategies for the management of this fragile population. The overall objective is to ensure that this species remains viable in the long term. Wollemi pines have also been presented by Australian prime ministers and foreign affairs ministers to various dignitaries around the world.